So Ford's brought in, not that he's any Einstein, not that he's a dummy either, not that he's done anything great. There aren't a whole lot of bills passed by Ford or anything like that as a representative, but he is an honest guy, all right? Now, but think about this. Jerry Ford becomes vice president. What's the biggest election he ever won? Where's he from? Yeah. Now, does he even represent all of Grand Rapids? His congressional district basically is East Grand Rapids. So here you got a guy who's now vice president of the United States, who the biggest election he ever won in his life was in the principality, I like to call it, of East Grand Rapids. Okay? It's not like even the whole state of Michigan voted for him. Was Jerry Ford really known that well outside of West Michigan? When he becomes vice president, there's a lot of people going, Jerry what? Who? Okay, not a whole lot known about him. Okay. Then, he's honest. These are things he's known for, being honest. He's known for being a klutz. Not that there's anything wrong with that. The trouble, I'm going to bring that up because it's going to come up later. Jerry Ford had been a great athlete. What was his sport? Football. Played U of M. Yay, big house, right? Had to be a pretty good athlete. Now, there's a tendency though. Big guys. Jerry Ford was a kind of big, lanky guy. Big guys, as you get older, we study this in society. All of you, as you get older, after you turn about 35, 40, you begin to get very clumsy. You ever watch the old folks try to play basketball before school? The old guys that come in there, it's rough and tumble. They're on the floor more than anything else, right? Well, as Jerry Ford grew older, he became rather clumsy. Now, the problem is, every now and then he had a habit of slipping and tripping. You'll see him on film. The one time he's coming down with his wife. He's coming down the steps. This is back when the planes used to land. They had steps to the ground. You walk in. He's coming down the steps. Wah! You see his feet. Boom, boom, boom. His butt. Looks like a cartoon and goes sliding on down. Okay. He's at a golf outing. He's a very good golfer. Whee! You know, it's big crowds. He's vice president, right? Big crowds. Whee! Well, phew! That's one of my whole things. You doink right off a lady's head. To the hospital she goes, right? Poor Jerry. Things like that happen. Now the trouble is, if you don't know him, there's a tendency, it's totally wrong, but there's a tendency in your mind to equate being a klutz with being stupid. We kind of, in cartoons, we put that together. The klutzy guy's always stupid. So nobody knows much about Jerry Ford, but within the first 2 or 3 weeks that they hear about him, he does 2 or 3 kind of klutzy things. And so around the country, rightly or wrongly, he gets a rap as being kind of stupid. Okay? One of the Democrats said, he can't chew gum and walk down the street at the same time. That's where that saying came from. All right? Trouble is, everybody who knew Jerry Ford knew he was not the brightest, but a pretty sharp guy and honest. But right away, and you know this, if you get kind of a reputation, it's hard to shake, isn't it? Once people tend to think something about you, all right? That's going to be part of the problem with Jerry. He's hardworking. He is a horribly poor speaker. Okay, you could use him for a sleeping pill. He talks like, this is Jerry Ford. My name is Jerry Ford. I'm the Vice President of the United States of America, and I hate talking in front of people. And you could be asleep in about 10 seconds listening to Ford. Okay. But that again, how someone talks sometimes gives you an impression of how intelligent they are. So between the fact he was not a good public speaker, he really was nervous speaking publicly for a politician, and the fact he was a klutz, very early on he gets a reputation of not being too bright. That's not going to help when he needs Congress and people to back him, right? Very conservative. Known, again, he was known for not being smart. That's not true, but that's his reputation. Okay? That's the reputation. Now within Congress, in Congress, highly respected. People who knew him and worked with him knew he was a bright guy, sharp guy. Okay. Remember we always say, first impressions last? Jerry Ford's first impressions to the nation were not good. One of the first things he does is pardon Nixon. Very unpopular move. Extremely unpopular move. Okay. Now, the reason he pardons Nixon, he says, is so the country can move on. We had spent 6-7 months on Watergate. During that time, Congress got almost nothing done. They hadn't got anything done for the previous 4 years. Democrats versus Republicans. We were in rough shape. The Vietnam thing was coming undone. Inflation was high, the oil problems, and Congress was all tied up in Watergate. Ford said, enough's enough. We need to move on, kind of like Lincoln after the Civil War. We got to forget the past, forgive and forget, let's just move on with the country. So he gives Nixon a pardon. Now, right away that leads people to think, no, let me see. Nixon makes Ford vice president and then helps him to become president, and then Ford gives Nixon a pardon. Sounds like what was worked out? What would you suspect Ford of there? Making a deal. Hey, I'll make you vice president, but if I get in trouble, you give me a pardon. Common belief came that Ford had made a deal with Nixon, which again then makes his popularity go even. So poor Jerry Ford, within just the first few weeks, he's basically done as president. His credibility is shot within the first few weeks. All right? The Democrats don't like him because he's a conservative to begin with. The general country now thinks he's kind of dumb, and the country is fed up with all the Watergate crap, but now they think that Ford, and that's all a part of it, that Ford's part of Nixon is a part of all the dirty tricks and the crap. Okay? His number one problem was inflation. Ford took over as 11%. That would be like a car this year costing $10,000, next year costing $11,100. That'd be like going to McDonald's this year for $1, next year it's $1.11. But imagine everything you bought. And meanwhile, what were wages doing? Being frozen and staying steady. During those 2 or 3 years, we get to the film, they'll show you some of the music. Even the music is a downer. It's kind of almost like now where everybody just became very pessimistic. Well, if I have a job, I'll probably lose it. I'm going to have a pay cut, and the life sucks, the world sucks, America's going to heck in a handcart kind of an attitude. Right? The whole feeling of the country is just going, we're pulling out of Vietnam, but we know basically we lost in Vietnam. We've never lost war, but we lost in Vietnam. We get a vice president who's a crook. We got a president who's a crook. Now we got a new president who we don't think's too bright and might be a crook. Things were not good. It was a downer time in America, okay? It was a downer time. Basically it was oil. Again, the price jumped eventually to $1.20. Worker demands. Everybody wanted higher wages because prices went up. Makes sense. But then when everybody got a pay raise, prices went up again. Correct? Has to. Everybody gets a pay raise. If I'm a businessman, I give all my workers a pay raise, how do I make up that pay raise?